Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking about misconceptions Americans have about the rest of the world.
Yeah, this is something that we really put a lot of thought into because we thought back to when we first started traveling, some of the misconceptions that we've had that have kind of been blown away, and then just things we hear from people all the time when we're telling them about our travels around the world. There are a lot of misconceptions specifically by Americans because you hear things, you see things on TV, and that's just not the way that it is once you start traveling. So we are from Atlanta, Georgia, to give you a base, and we're going to be kind of comparing our life in Atlanta to our life on the road in the rest of the world to give you kind of an idea of where we're coming from. And the first misconception is that the standard of living in the rest of the world is much lower than it is in America.
Boy, is that one not true. The standard of living across the world, from Asia to Europe to African countries in the Middle East, all over the world, the standard of living is not the same as the U.S. It's completely different, but it's not a low standard of living. There's a lot on offer. We recently just were in Thailand and in Bangkok specifically, and some of the malls there, I've never seen malls this incredible in the US, and especially in the Atlanta area, in the greater Atlanta area. It's just kind of blew me away. Some of these malls were really, really wild.
Yeah, they're an event in and of themselves to go to. So what's available to you is going to be amazing. But not only that, the apartment complexes, because that's really important to us, is where am I going to be living? Is the standard of living, when I think of standard of living, I think my house. Is it going to be good? Will I be able to find anything? We have not found a big city yet in the world that did not give us a standard of living that was equal to or better than the apartments we can rent in Atlanta. And the difference of it is that you're going to be able to get them cheaper, so you can afford one or two levels up than what you would be able to afford at home. So actually, when you really boil it down, your standard of living for you is going to be higher because your dollar is going to stretch so much further. So we routinely get apartment buildings in complexes with amazing rooftop pools and luxury gyms. The last apartment we had a private elevator, which was just crazy, and we were only paying $1,200 a month for it. So the standard is you can get anything you want. You could even go higher than that, but you're just going to get it for a lot less money. So that's one first thing that's amazing. The second misconception we don't want to talk about is that it is unsafe to travel outside the U.S.
That is such an enormous misconception. These countries that we've traveled to, again, across multiple continents, have been just as safe, if not safer. I mean, there's practices I get into when I'm overseas. A continent, an area that is extremely safe is like Asia. And one of the things I get into the habit of doing, like leaving things, like I leave my cell phone on the table when I get up to go to the bathroom, or leave my bag or whatever, and don't even give it a second thought. I have to remind myself when I'm going home, like, oh, remember that you can't just leave stuff sitting around anymore. You have to really pay attention to, to your things and all that type of stuff. And as far as like crime is concerned too, there's the crime rate is just so much lower than in other countries.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of crazy things that we see people doing, and we think to ourselves, what are they doing? That's not safe. And then we remember we're not in America. Recently we were at Disneyland in one of these countries, and we saw a couple girls eating at a table next to us. They were teenage girls. They were going to get up and go use the bathroom, left their iPhones sitting on the table at Disney, got up and were gone for 15 minutes. Busy, crowded area. Didn't think a thing of it. Came back. Phones were still sitting there. Just not something you would do. Another really bizarre thing that happened to us was in Japan, where we were lining up to get tickets for a baseball game, and it was going to be about an hour wait to get these tickets. And so what people started doing was they just started putting their purses down on the ground to mark their spot, and then they'd walk away. for an hour. And everyone just kind of put something down and walked away. Some people put down a water bottle. Some people put down their camera bags, purses. They all just walked away. That marked their spot. And so we were like, well, let's just do it too. So we went and bought a water bottle. We just didn't have the guts to leave like our purse because it's just not in us to think that that's safe. So we left a water bottle to mark our spot. We walked away too. Sure enough, we came back an hour later. Everybody's stuff was still there. Nobody had touched anything. And that's just the norm in a lot of these places. So, you know, in Europe, it's not quite like that. But I still do feel very safe in Europe. Probably still safer than I do in Atlanta at home. And even in Latin America, the places we've been to in Merida and in Colombia, probably feel about as safe as we do at home in Atlanta. So the misconception that it's unsafe to travel, we've been to over 50, going on 60 countries, and we really haven't found a place where we felt less safe than we do at home. And we feel fine at home. Mm-hmm. It's just that we feel extraordinarily safe when we leave home.
Exactly.
Next one is going to be that it's very expensive to travel the world and to go to a lot of these countries.
Yeah, I think people just get, really scared, and they hear people saying, oh, it's expensive to go to, Japan or to fly across the world. But it's really so different when you actually get out there and get on the ground, especially when the exchange rate is working in your favor.
Yeah, and right now the exchange rate, if you're an American, really is working in your favor. Everything is so much cheaper than even it was 2 years ago. To give you an example, we kind of market, like when we go to Thailand, we market by how much the massage costs there, because we do that a lot, but it's kind of in our memory. And 2-3 years ago when we would go, it was like $6.30 American. And now this year when we're here, it's more like $5.50 American. So things have dropped considerably, and that's all due to the exchange rate. Japan can be expensive only in Tokyo for the housing. But once you get past the housing, everything else, the food around the world is so much cheaper than in America that we go into shock when we go home and go to like Chick-fil-A or like, Subway or Chipotle. I know we went to Chipotle in Union Station.
Oh my goodness.
It was like $37. And
almost passed out at Union Station trying to order Chipotle. It's like, why is this so expensive? What's happening? You get huge sticker shock coming back to the US after paying such reasonable prices. I mean, in South America, in Europe, in Asia, the prices are dramatically less. I'm talking less than half, sometimes a quarter of the price. Sometimes even less than that. I mean, we've eaten like street food in say someplace like Thailand before, and spent under $3 for both of us for a meal. So you could never, even think about doing that in the U.S. No. Even having that as an option. So it is really crazy when you think about the fact that you can. It's not really that expensive. You can actually afford to do it.
Now, there are a few countries that are expensive, mm-hmm. and that's some of where the misconception comes from. Paris is expensive. It's going to be expensive. You're going to spend a lot of money if you go to Paris. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people go to Paris, they spend a lot of money, and they kind of, that trickles back. Mm-hmm. Iceland is expensive, mm-hmm. Norway is expensive, Switzerland and Austria are expensive. That's pretty much the extent of the really expensive mm-hmm. countries that you're going to go to. So when you go there, we get sticker shock, even more so than the U.S. But basically, any other country is going to be less than what you spend in the U.S. And it's a really great feeling to get, like, you feel like everything's free almost. And it's so cool.
Yeah.
But when you go home, it really is a shock to the system, the prices you end up paying.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like you said, France as a whole is not that expensive.
No,
it's basically just Paris, because you get outside of France or outside of Paris, and you're just like, oh wow, this is really cheap. But then you go back to Paris and you're like, oh my gosh, I forgot how expensive this was. to get, even just like a baguette or something, or like a sandwich. You're just like, man, this is really expensive compared to, what we were paying in like Toulouse or something.
Exactly. The next misconception is that healthcare is going to be limited around the world. And I think there's a couple things in play here. Healthcare in the U.S. is among the best quality in the world. And so you're not really going to get better quality healthcare outside of the U.S., but what you will get is much more affordable healthcare at the same level and much more accessible in the speed that you're able to get that healthcare. So overall, that does make it better, because a lot of times in the U.S. you're going to get amazing healthcare, but they may tell you you can't get in for 3 months, and that doesn't really do you a lot of good if you're sick. So
Yeah, exactly. And if you're watching this channel, you've probably seen videos of some of our healthcare journey in some of these countries. So if you haven't, make sure you check that out here on the channel. I ended up having to have unexpected surgery when we were in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and that ended up being amazing. Like you said, the level of care was pretty much, was high level, what we would expect, say, in the U.S., but it was ridiculously affordable, and it was also, we got it taken care of from when I landed and went to the doctor to walking out of the hospital, a 5-day, 4-day stay. It was like 10 days,
yeah.
which is really wild.
The next one is going to be that you won't be able to buy clothes outside of America. They won't either have your size, or it'll be too expensive, or they just won't have the style that you want to wear because you have a certain style that you like. And we fell into this misconception the first time we left America, and we packed so many, like the huge suitcases with all of our clothes, because we thought, well, we got to bring clothes for a year. And it wasn't the case at all. So many amazing stores around the world that are so much cheaper than the clothes we have in America, that now when we leave America, we only bring a couple of outfits with us, because we know we're just going to load up on stuff when we get places. Like in Europe especially, we love Decathlon and Primark. So if you're going to Europe, just do a little Google search for those stores. Super cheap, good clothing that we love there. And then when we get to Asia, so many other things, and we hear this a lot, like especially women talking about, can they get pants, can they get different items. And we found that not only can you get local clothing, but they also have a lot of the stores that we have in America. One that you particularly love and get a lot of your clothes at is there as well.
I do, yes. I actually was so surprised. We were actually, the first time we ever went to Kuala Lumpur, went to the mall because I had sat on in an area where there was like a nail sticking out, and unfortunately it hooked into my pants, one of the few pants that I had, and I got a huge tear, and it wasn't something that was going to be able to be fixed. So I was like, oh man, I'm out one pair of pants, and they were literally my favorite ones. And I was like, well, let me see if I could find a comparison to that store here. I looked, and they actually have the exact same store as Lululemon. So I got my replacement Lululemon pants in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, in the Lululemon store in the mall, which was really wild. I was like, this is so crazy. I can't believe I'm getting the exact same pants replaced, just because, I get these and Athleta, I get these particular brands because they do last longer, unless you sit on a nail and you ruin them. Then that's my fault, not theirs.
Yeah, I usually shop at either Primark or Decathlon, or just in Thailand or Kuala Lumpur. There's amazing deals on all kinds of stuff. Like I always get my hats when I get there. I got this Orioles hat this year, and of course I got a Braves hat, and these are the real hats that you would spend 30, 35. How much are they now in America? Probably $35. These are $3 where I get them in Asia. And then I just recently bought, because and this is what people talk about, you don't have to pack everything with you, because right now we're in Vietnam, and it's cold.
In northern Vietnam.
Northern Vietnam. It's 50 degrees. It's kind of like a cold flash they had. Before we came up here, we looked at the weather. We saw it was going to be a little colder than normal. only for about a week, and then we're going to Japan. It's going to be a little colder than we're used to, and I didn't have any sweatshirts with me because I wouldn't need them where I was. And so I went to the mall in Thailand, and I bought this sweatshirt. It's I thought it was Vermont, but now I think it's Marshall Thundering Herd sweatshirt. It's a really nice soft sweatshirt.
It's really nice.
It cost me 269 baht, which is about $8. Brand new sweatshirt. And
so
then
nice.
I needed new shorts for, around the house and working out. Went to the mall in Thailand, got these Under Armour shorts. These were $4. And then just a real nice Patagonia t-shirt that I got was, again, about $4. So
Yeah.
you just don't need to pack clothes, and don't worry about clothes. These are size. In fact, the Marshall jacket, people talk about too, well, we're bigger than a lot of the countries where other people are. Are we going to have the sizes there? The Marshall jacket, I ended up having to get the Marshall jacket because it was the only one in my size. They had actually bigger sizes of ones where they had like Detroit Red Wings, Philadelphia Flyers, a bunch of other like colleges like UT. They had 2X, 3X. So really any size you want to get, you can get, and it's not going to be a problem. Mm-hmm. That was one of our worries, was maybe the clothes won't fit us.
Yeah.
Totally fit you. Do not pack tons of clothes.
Do not stress about it.
Do not stress about that. Next one, that food is not going to be available. That might be to your liking, and you're going to have to eat just local food everywhere you go.
Mm-hmm. And I think what's interesting with this one too, with a lot of people having like food sensitivities or special food needs, it's so shocking everywhere that I go that you can get stuff like, I can go to Vietnam or to Thailand and I find something that's gluten-free if I want something gluten-free. Or, you see like the nut allergy stuff on there, advisements on the packages. So it's not just the local food that you eat. And we travel for longer periods of time. We tend to stay in places for a month or two, and sometimes you want to eat like your food kind of stuff from home. So there's all kinds of fare available, not just like American food, but like we have found like Chicago style pizza when we were down in Saigon, and it was amazing, tasted just like Chicago pizza. Just all kinds of Mediterranean food, Middle Eastern food, all kinds of stuff. It's been absolutely incredible to go to these countries and know, okay, well, they don't only serve, Italian food or, Vietnamese food or Thai food. You can find anything. There's all kinds of places open. And on top of that, there's a lot of like fast food restaurants too from around the world. And actually a lot of like American fast food places like your McDonald's and your KFC and Burger King and Wendy's and Subway and all those types of things too, on top of their fast food stuff too, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, and what's cool about the American brands in other countries is they'll have all the food that you're used to from home on the menu, but they'll also have some special stuff that you can't get at home on the menu, which is pretty cool because it's like a kind of a localized version of something. So you get to try out new things from some of your favorite restaurants.
Yeah.
Which I like to do.
We did that recently. We wanted burgers, and then we saw there was a Steak and Shake just opened up in one of the malls, and I was like, oh, let's go eat Steak and Shake. That'll be fun. It'll taste like home. And then got there, and I thought, oh, I would really like a milkshake. And they had a special milkshake in Thailand that they were offering, a sticky rice pandan milkshake, and I was like, I'm definitely going to try that. So I did. It was actually really good. So if you're ever in Thailand and you go to Steak and Shake, definitely try the sticky rice pandan milkshake because it was really good.
Next one is going to be that the infrastructure is going to be more limited and challenging. And that's just simply not the case at all because America is a very car-driven culture, and almost every other country in the world is less dependent on cars than we are. So it's actually pretty hard to travel around America without a car. We've done that quite a bit, and it can be challenging in most cities. Pretty much everywhere else in the world, not everybody has a car, so it's very easy. The infrastructure is way more built out, especially in Europe, especially in Asia. It's super easy to get around all those places because their society is built on people not having a car. So when you leave the country and you go to those places, you're going to find it very easy and very efficient and cheap to get around.
Yeah, it's actually really incredible because it opens up, whole places to you. I mean, some of the metro systems, like if you're in Rome, Italy, or like Paris, France, or even just taking the trains from country to country across Europe, and Asia is actually connecting more and more via train from country to country. So lots of offerings like that, whereas in the US, it's actually the infrastructure is a lot more challenging within big cities for metros. I mean, there's a few, but in some cases, actually, it's even, more challenging to ride, and, especially for non-locals. And then also just, moving around from state to state. Like you said, we travel a lot by train. Have you seen our other Grounded Life travel channel? We travel a lot by train, especially when we're in the U.S. We try to get around by train as much as possible because, we just like to move around that way because it's a little bit easier or more fun for us.
Next one is going to be that Americans are not welcomed in a lot of places, or maybe thought badly of. And I think this stems from a lot of what you hear in the media, that Americans are not welcome places, or people saying it. There's a lot of people that create content that want to make a big deal out of things because it gets them clicks, right? It gets them views, and we have been all over the world, and we really have not seen or felt this at all. Have you felt that at all?
No, we have not felt that unwelcome feeling anywhere that we've been. I think people have been not just extremely helpful. I mean, in a couple instances, people wanted to like hug us because we were Americans and they had never met Americans before. Like when we were in Romania, that, was just like, whoa, okay, I was not expecting that. Not because I thought anything bad, it was just unexpected that it was, there was so much excitement. And just other places, so many places, or it just doesn't matter to them. It doesn't matter if you're American or not. They're not like, oh, we don't like your people, don't come. Never felt that anywhere. Have gotten nothing but kindness and extreme helpfulness. I mean, like someplace like Japan, we've gotten so much help from people. Like if someone looks at you and they think that you might be trying to figure something out, they'll offer to help you if they speak English. I've had that happen to me in Thailand as well. I was out and about town by myself and I got turned around, was trying to figure something out, so I'm sure I had that look on my face. And a Thai gentleman came up to me in English and asked me what I was looking for. I told him and he helped me figure out what I was looking for. Super easy. He could have just kept walking, but he didn't. He stopped, assisted me, and then he went on his way, and he knew I was going in the right direction. So that was really cool.
Yeah, we definitely have just not seen or felt that as far as being welcomed, and especially both of us. I mean, we both pretty much feel welcomed everywhere we've been, so it's a pretty good barometer because we're out together, we're out alone, and we've never really felt anything. We just don't get that or see that. So if that's a concern you have, we get that question a lot, like, which countries did you feel welcomed in? Pretty much all of them. I think pretty much, when we tell people we're American, their face usually lights up. There's never been a bad reaction to that when they ask us where we're from. It's always like, oh, wow, like it's it's interesting. Because it is interesting to people sometimes. So it's not something to be afraid of that you're from America, that people are going to be, thinking something negative about you. And then another misconception is that English is not going to be spoken in a lot of countries that you'll visit.
Yeah, and we always, we know that English is going to be spoken pretty much everywhere that we go. However, we do make the effort to learn a handful of words, yes, no, hello, thank you, help, bathroom, that kind of stuff. We try to learn that everywhere that we go just so that we have an in, you can say hello to someone in their language. It opens up a little bit more for you, and people are like, okay, this person's struggling trying to say something to me in my language, and then if they know English, they come out and start speaking to you in English. And in a lot of places, like I always use the Google Translation app, and in some countries where people think, how are you even getting around? I have absolutely no problems. Like say someplace like Thailand, when we're in Bangkok, I never even, I mean, I know some words, and I even took Thai lessons and haven't been able to use the language much because people will automatically just speak to me in English, and so that makes it like I don't ever have to use my Google Translate in some place like Thailand, and just a lot of other countries are like that too. They basically just take one quick look at you, and they're like, "All right, this person's American, so I'm I know English, so I'm just going to help them out by just speaking to them in English," which is really funny.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious that we're American when we walk in somewhere. And, right now we're in rural-ish Thailand, rural-ish Vietnam, in the very northern part, almost to China. And so I was walking around the city the other day, and I don't think a lot of the people that just are about their daily life in the city probably speak English, but everyone that did talked to me. And about 10 kids stopped me to say hello, to wave and say hello, just out on my walk. And so everyone that did spoke it. But then at the hotel here that we're staying at, everyone speaks English. Even in a very kind of remote place, we have not encountered a single person that didn't address us in English. And we're trying to learn a little Vietnamese, but they just speak to us in English. So it's very...
Makes it hard to do.
Yeah, so you're really... there are people definitely in countries that don't speak English, but you're unlikely to run into them because the ones that you're going to be meeting at your hotel or at the restaurant, they almost always do speak English. So it's not really a concern. It's a misconception that you have to come armed with all this foreign language, because even if you do that, they're probably not going to speak their language to you.
Yeah, it's really funny because, like I said, we always try to learn those handful of words, but we have found that people who speak English in other countries would rather practice their English with you, with like a native English speaker, than to have you try to speak their language to them. Because honestly, their level of English, even if it's like broken English, is 1 million times better than us trying to speak their language with them. And I think, they're like, hey, I get to practice my English and it'll get better. So I think it's really truly amazing that in so many countries people are able to speak English, and I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so these are some of the biggest misconceptions we saw, and don't want you to hold that back from your travels.
Exactly. Hopefully it was helpful to you as you're considering doing some travels. If you have questions about any of these, go ahead and leave those down in the comments section so that others can see the questions as well, and we'll answer those for you. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Give us a like, and we'll see you next time.